Hey guys, Darren down at Supanova Perth. We're here with Ryan Corr.
How you going?
Who you will know from a plethora of Australian shows and across, the last 15-something years and then
20-something years now. Yeah, I'm feeling old here.
Wow.
Yeah.
But most recently, you're in Limbo, which is on in Australian TV, and you're in House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones with a sad demise.
Yes, representing here.
Yes, but that's fantastic because you got to work on a big, crazy production that has stupid amounts of money thrown at it.
Yeah.
So that's the first question, to be honest with you, because I've interviewed a lot of people who've worked on Australian TV and movies, and usually they're fairly small things. And then what was it like going from something with a craft services in Australia going to a big juggernaut like Game of Thrones?
With the chefs and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Look, usually that transition is really noticeable. Like, it is, like you say, you go from sets that are like this to, operational castles where you can go into the levels, where all the fire's real, where these costumes have been designed over years and months, specifically for you with teams and teams of people. And by the time we get there, it's all made, so it's like it's a world. And you enter literally at the studios where Harry Potter was made, go around Harry Potter's studio, there's a hexagonal fence, there's a Soviet Russia over here, hexagonal fence, Aquaman over here, hexagonal fence, and then we've got Game of Thrones over here. So it's sort of like, it's a pinch yourself sort of moment. Ultimately, it's the same job, like we go over there and we try and play other people and represent different parts of humanity. But for this show particularly, the fans are so far and wide and they know so much about these characters that it very much becomes about servicing their idea of these characters and coming in and becoming it's like you're being welcomed into a part of the universe. You have to sort of prove yourself a little bit. So, but because it was COVID, and we'd gone from no industry to all of a sudden you're doing Game of Thrones. We all had to be a bit careful. We were one of the first shows that sort of got up and fully filmed after, just at the end of COVID in Australia and at the end of lockdown. But it was open in the UK. So we just, where we might have usually gone out and gone like, hey, we're on Game of Thrones, we were sort of like, hey, from a distance, But it didn't change any of the love.
So, what's it like going from, like, production-wise, that's another level. Like, you've worked on a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like in Australia and overseas, but that's another level. So, did you have an assistant? Like, was
all
it
those
crazy like
things, the drivers, all the perks and regulations, But it's really about time. So for instance, like in Limbo you mentioned earlier, we'd often shoot 10 to 15 scenes a day, and we shot that entire series, 6 episodes, in 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's a lot,
The wedding scene in House of the Dragon took us 2 weeks to shoot half of it.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks to shoot half of one scene, 15 scenes a day. And so the way that you use your energy is different. The way that you conserve, if you've got the big battle scene coming up in 3 months and it's with this, and often, like, schedules will roll over because things take so long to shoot and they make sure they get all the coverage. Sometimes you don't get to the scenes you thought you would on that day, so you're, like, ready to go and, be a warrior or, or punch through the crowd and say, okay, cut, and we're going to try and pick that up on Wednesday. And so you have to sort of constantly be in a state of readiness for when those scenes come up. You've worked so long, you've rehearsed that, you've got a lot more rehearsal process than you do in something down here, just because of the time available and the money available. And so you can really mine these characters with, of course, the source material for a lot more detail. And I mean, you have to have transport over there, and it was incredible. I'm humbled by the experience. I got to live in London for a period of time, out of COVID, Australia, Spain for a period of time.
It's just a shame that they knocked you off.
It's just a shame they knocked me. I was telling them myself, me and Gav are battling for the ghost of Harrenhal. You know what I mean? But it was amazing to be a part.
Obviously, you've worked on a lot of Australian productions. You've worked with a lot of incredible talent, like Hacksaw Ridge. Mel Gibson directed it. I actually interviewed Matt Nable ages ago and talked to him about working on that film, and he told me some cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, I can tell you stories about that one.
But working, like, who's the one actor that you've worked with where you've watched work and you've gone, shit, like it's just another level? Have you had an experience like that?
Oh, many, man, many. But I mean, one that springs to mind when you just said that particularly was Joaquin Phoenix. I did Mary Magdalene with Joaquin, and watching. There was a lot of unusual ways about the way that he worked, but watching him turn up in Sicily, and we were all doing a scene, and him sort of being cross-legged in a fetal position before the scene started, and no one knew what was going to happen, and they'd call action, and he'd sort of come up as Jesus, and he'd sort of go around and use all the extras, and every time he did a take, it was sort of like different, and he was just using his environment around him. It was this really unusual process.
He's a bit method, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Method's different for different people. Method acting's, being the character in and out of your life in order to try and find it, right? Like, you must call me Abraham Lincoln. I think Joaquin when I spoke to him, it was always about pursuit of truth.
Yeah.
I spoke to him a lot because Philip Seymour Hoffman's another actor that I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And I just think he's one of the best in the world. I saw a play that he did for the STC many years ago called Rifle Mind. He came down and directed with Hugo Weaving in it, actually. I've always just admired him. So when I got to work with Joaquin, I asked him about how was Philip, and he said that he is by far the most amazing actor he'd ever worked with. Like when he was working on The Master. You know, there are moments you don't actually, you must forget what you're doing. These guys are so inside the characters. And, you know, people like Paul Thomas Anderson, people, you know, keep rolling takes. Sometimes you can find things that are a little bit magic. And I've witnessed that happen in front of. I've watched Hugo Weaving and Cate Blanchett do that on stage. I watched Mel Gibson do that as a director. You know, I grew up with Braveheart. I grew up wanting to be a part of the tiniest part of a Mel Gibson film.
Well, watching him direct would probably be a whole other gamut.
It's the most, like, he'd go up to a group of like 35 young men, and like we'd all be trying to run across the battlefield. Be like, no, here, do it like this. Pick it up with his cannons like this. Pick up a 60-gun machine,
like
runs across the field, comes back, drops it off, and says, "Do it like that." And we're all just like, "Yeah, yes, sir." You know what I mean? Like, that's why you're Braveheart, and we're sort of trying.
Yeah, I've heard he's like that. He'll show you exactly what he wants.
And he's so passionate, and he's so alive in what he does. Like, you know, I remember watching the behind the scenes of Braveheart back in the day. You know, he was on the megaphone, he was calling out to the extras, he was on the horse, he jumped from director to actor, and it's all the same. You can see all of the visceral energy behind. You can see why Mel is as masterful at his craft as he is. And I think he's always been one of the best directors in the world. He does, you know, Apocalypto. It's pretty incredible. You know, getting to work with Russell, I had similar experiences, and on stage my whole life too. So I mean, that's what it's the pursuit of. You try and find those magical moments. That's not always there. But sometimes you get it. In Thrones, I got to work with the amazing Emma Darcy.
Yeah.
Who honestly, like I went after my first couple of scenes, I went up to McLean and went, just like, how's this? He was like, I know. You know what I mean? That's what I thought to get it. But you know, just such finesse to their craft, and you can tell how long they've studied and how much they put into it, and why they get these incredible elite roles. I've been telling a story today. Sorry to keep talking at you, but I was telling a story today about Matt Smith. We were doing a wedding scene in House of the Dragon, and there was a night there, Brian McTavish, and he was announcing every family that came in, you know, that family, and Lord such and such. And Damon was supposed to come into the room, he wasn't going to announce him, and he had to interrupt the wedding, walk to the front and sit there. But when he walked into the room and the guard didn't say his name, Matt Smith, as the actor, stopped, and this is in a room of 200 people, and we all just went, what's going on? And he turned to the knight, got in his face and said, go on then. And he didn't know what to do, and he said, say my name. And he went, Daemon Targaryen. And he went, okay. And then he walked in, sat up, and he held everyone, like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And I sat there watching that and go, oh, well, that's why you're Matt Smith. That's why you can play Daemon Targaryen.
It's pretty crazy, like, you get to be on set and you see those experiences, but you also can take something from it.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can always continue to hone your craft.
Constant learning process, you know. And, you know, I came into this watching all the people, like, you know, JJ, you know, I grew up, who's best friends with Mel, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up watching those lads. And yeah, I think you take something from all the sets that you work on. I think you take something from all the different tones that you use.
Yeah.
I definitely take something from all the directors. And yeah, this is a constant process of exploration, you know, and challenging yourself and seeing if you can stretch outside, you know.
Well, you've done a bit of everything on screen.
I try to.
You've played everything pretty much.
I don't know about everything. There's still a lot to go.
You're not far off it.
You haven't done a Hamlet yet.
But is there any character that you would love to play? Is there some genre or something that you would love to play?
Look, tipping into the fantasy world, which was something I've always loved, but never sort of saw myself as a space. After having that experience on Thrones, I'm really interested in that sort of world, in the sort of more heightened, you know, like these villainous sort of characters that you have to sort of find the center of. But
like a Star Wars?
I'd love to do a Star Wars. Are you kidding me, man? I'd love to do a Star Wars. I'd love to get on as a guestie as The Last of Us at the moment, which blew me away. You know what I mean? Anything HBO will do it at the moment, and you know.
That was pretty wild. That series.
It's just a great translation.
That episode 3.
Oh my God! How moving was that?
It destroyed me.
Oh,
I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, "It's Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation."
Oh,
not anymore.
It was heartbreaking. And you know that was a deviation from the movie, but there's two great actors sparring with each other, making one of the best love stories I've seen in the last 10 years.
Yeah, that was bloody good. And the latest one that I've been watching is Silo.
I haven't seen
Rebecca
that.
Ferguson. It's an Apple Plus series. It is nuts. It's got Tim Robbins in it.
Oh yeah.
And they're in a silo and they're trying to figure out what is maybe outside or not. And there's things that go on.
Sounds a little Severance.
A little bit.
A little bit.
But
Apple is sort of exploring the inside this world, inside that world.
So that's my favourite one at the moment. So it's right up there. But is this your first convention you've done?
It is, yeah.
So you've just in Sydney last week. How's it been for you? Because
the whole process?
Yeah, just the convention. Because I've interviewed a lot of people where they've come down to Australia from overseas, and it's their first convention they've ever done.
Yeah.
And you go, did you love it? And then after the interview, the camera goes off. They go, yeah, not loving it. but they like the experience of meeting the fans. But that's it.
We have no job without an audience. We have no job without these fans. You know, I think if anything, we should be grateful. And what's amazing about coming to these things is there's such an immense enthusiasm for these worlds and for these characters. You know, it's nothing but passion for these characters. And so we're meeting the people that these stories and these characters actually mean something to. So you know, I don't know how you can. They can be long days sometimes. You know, Alyssa Milano's 5 kilometres when yours has got 5 in front of it, but I'd be the same way. You know what I mean? I watch Charmed with my sister. It's Alyssa Milano. And, you know, so it becomes different ways. But, you know, hearing from the fans, you know, such an immediate feedback. And in some cases, the way some of the works touch them is an absolute honour. So it's, you know, it's a unique experience like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for chatting to us today. Enjoy the rest of the convention, and we hope to see you on the screen more soon.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, mate. Ciao.